Let's talk about, well, you have a headline that you wanted to go over. So you can jump us into this
I'll toss this in because I read the whole headline and you saw some brief parts of it. But I'm going to preface this by saying two things really quick. This is about EV tax credits in the US. So if you're not based in the US, this is not applicable to you. And this is also a political bill that is in the process of being voted on. So it's not through yet. And it also is political, which we will be avoiding the political aspect of this. We just want to talk about what the bill could be changing to EVs and buying EVs in the US.
Okay, something that may be true soon about EVs.
It seems like it's trending towards potentially happening.
Okay.
And so the bill that is going through right now is called the Inflation Reduction Act of 2020. It has a lot of stuff in it, but we're going to focus on how it's going to change the EV tax credits in the US. And do you want to give like a really quick overview of how it works now?
Yeah, okay. So the EV tax credits, you've probably heard a lot in like when people review American electric cars about how they say what the price is, and then they also say what the price would be after an EV tax credit.
Yeah.
So basically what the government did was they said, okay, we want to incentivize people starting to jump on this electric car bandwagon. But electric cars are expensive, and we need to give them a reason to pick the electric car over the gas car. So what they did was, if you bought a qualifying electric car, the government, you could basically write it off, and you would get a $7,500, at least at the beginning, credit off of your taxes when you paid your taxes.
Yeah, this was like the federal tax credit. There are some other potential different credits you can get. And this is also like you may get up to $7,500. But like the gist of it, if you want to do the most basic understanding of it, is you could get $7,500 off of your car. It
was like a discount.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, so everyone would go, oh, this car, it's actually $43,000, but after the tax credit, it's only $37,000. And it was funny, actually, Tesla on their website, do you remember this? They would put the price of the car after the tax credit and estimated gas savings. And I was like, that's not the price of the car.
If you go right now, the default still is under potential savings, and it's annoying. It's past that. So, and for why Tesla doesn't do that anymore is the big requirement right now currently is once the manufacturer sells 200,000 units, they lose the tax credit is over.
Wasn't it like something slightly more complicated? Like
it probably is.
I think once you sell a certain amount of cars, let's say you're company A, you sell a certain amount of electric cars that all qualify for the tax credit, then you've run out of the credit and it cuts in half. And now you sell a certain number of cars until you run out of the half size credit, and then you sell more cars and it just tapers off.
I don't know exactly what that is, but at 200,000, there's no tax credit. Yeah. So right now,
it runs out.
Yeah, it runs out. Tesla, Toyota, and GM do not have tax credits right now. You may be wondering about Toyota. This also counts for plug-in hybrids as long as the battery is a certain size. So Tesla, GM, Toyota in the U.S. right now have no eligibility for tax credits.
Yeah, so there are certain new companies who are just beginning to sell electric cars who are still in their phase of their cars are discounted.
Yep.
Okay.
So this new plan, I'm going to go over kind of the new regulations on what would be eligible for a tax credit. And it still is, up to $7,500.
Okay.
So let's see. I'll just go over them really quick and we can kind of then go over how this changes the landscape. So let's see. EVs need to be built in North America to be eligible for the tax credit. I don't know what the exact term built exactly means here. Assembled, manufactured, all that. Like can't have imports. I don't know exactly that, but right now it just says built in North America. If you have a personal income of $150,000 or a household income of over $300,000, not eligible. This I really thought was cool. Discounts occur at time of sale rather than on a tax refund from the next year.
That's sweet.
That's really cool. But the biggest thing on here that I think changes the landscape a lot is that cars have to be under $55,000 and trucks, SUVs, and vans under $80,000 to be eligible.
Okay, so they're really shrinking the eligible cars.
They're shrinking and expanding a little bit if you think about it.
Well, on one hand, they're starting it over. They'd be starting it over.
There's no 200,000 limit anymore.
Oh.
For now. I don't know,
sense.
when this potentially ends. It is the bill of 2022. Does it last till the end of 22? I don't know that part quite yet. But
sure. I think it makes sense because instead of just blanket going, hey, your first 200,000, whatever they are, they will all be discounted. I think they're fine-tuning those that will really benefit from it. Obviously, having a salary under a certain number and having a car cost under a certain amount. Because if you're out here buying a $150,000 electric car and you have a high salary, you don't really need to benefit from that government incentive.
I'm going to take one of the examples I have to go off of that is the Taycan.
Yeah.
The Taycan, like, sure, $7,500 off would be great, but chances are it doesn't affect. You're going to buy that car either way, where this $7,500 could be completely the deciding factor.
Exactly.
For someone else.
It becomes a more obvious incentive.
Yes.
I think the person buying the Taycan was going to get it anyway.
Yeah, I'm
probably saying it wrong too. They were going to get it anyway. It's not a real incentive.
Yes.
But the people who are like actually on the fence of deciding, well, these cars are about the same price and one of them's electric and one of them's not, the incentive actually matters when the price gets knocked down by $7,500. So that's, I guess, the point of it and why it makes sense to me. But you're right, it does change the landscape now because you said assembled in North America. I'm just going to go by what I
said
think.
built in North America.
I'm gonna adjust that because what I think they mean by built in North America is it's mostly assembled here.
Like the plant is.
Yeah, there might be some raw manufacturing of materials and things like that, but they ultimately put it together in North America.
I would guess that as well, because I'm going to assume, I believe it's the Mach-E has some parts manufactured somewhere else, but the plant and the manufacturing is in America. And I'm going to assume the Mach-E is probably one that will qualify. Yeah.
Sure. It's a small number, actually, that will qualify. Off the top of my head, the Mustang Mach-E, they make these here.
Surprisingly, that has not hit its 200,000 limit yet, which I'm kind of surprised at because that car is wildly popular.
Yeah,
but I think that's good because I bet it will hit that number fairly soon, especially with Lightning coming out as well.
Yeah. I was going to say, remind me the prices again, because I was going to say Rivian R1T, but it
will not.
It will not.
Trucks, SUVs, and vans have to be under 80,000. So
that's also because like it starts at like 76. So is it your exact spec?
I'm assuming this.
Maybe if your exact spec is 76K, then it'll qualify.
Don't know exactly with how. Wait, and Rivian put its prices up though. Is that 76 still 76? Or I don't think it is anymore.
Okay.
I'm going to assume Rivian, despite being American built, is not going to be part of this because they're very expensive.
Okay.
Right now.
Okay. So that's too expensive. So then F-150 Lightning. That's assembled in America, right?
And
Texas.
Quite a few of the models should be in there.
And they're going to be low enough priced. So as long as your salary is low enough, that will be one of them. And then Tesla Model 3 and maybe a Model Y.
A Model Y. I think the Y should count as an SUV.
It's an SUV. So that's going to be under 80.
Yeah. I wonder in this scenario of like what the defining factor of an SUV will be because crossover has hit this point where it's just like... the range of where like hatchback goes into crossover, goes into like small SUV, goes into SUV is a crazy.
They're gonna have to define that. But that is interesting though because here's another thing like that happens sometimes is at least has been accused of happening is manufacturers will bump up the price. Actually, this might be different. In the past, when you still paid full price for the car, but then had to apply to get the money taken off your taxes, manufacturers would bump up the price by several $1,000s because they knew that people were counting on getting the discount. But now it's occurring at the time of sale, so the company selling it doesn't actually get the money. So maybe the prices, because I was thinking, like Model 3 in the past, all right, the price has been going up, trickling up, and you would always just sort of subtract $7,000 in your head because you know you're getting that money back later. And so Tesla would take advantage of that and keep bumping the price up a little bit because they're going to get that money anyway and you're going to get the money back from the government. But now with this new thing, if it occurs at time of sale, it sounds to me like the company is not going to get that money and it's just happening on the spot and they won't be able to take advantage of it.
I'm going to assume it's pretty much going to be the same thing, except rather than the customer getting the rebate later, the company is going to get the rebate later from the government. Like if this is a federal tax incentive, I'm going to guess that like...
Still has to involve the government.
Yeah, Tesla's not going to lose $7,500 on the sale. They're going to get that later.
Interesting.
Rather than... And that it's basically like us getting it later as the tax incentive.
This is a lot of just me thinking out loud and not actually knowing how this works.
Please, no, this is us thinking out loud. There's very little. But let's go down a couple of some of the like most popular EVs we're seeing in here and see if they will get included in this. Again, if it passes. Not passed yet. We don't know if it will pass. It seems like it's trending towards that, but I just want to look at this. 3 and Y, I think, should be eligible for that. They have not been eligible since 2018, I
Yeah,
think.
bringing it back. for
Bringing it
Tesla.
back. That's awesome.
Model
awesome
S
news
is too
for
expensive.
That.
And Model X is too expensive.
Yeah. Both of those are too expensive. The Chevy Bolt should come back because
That's
it is General Motors,
Okay.
and they lost their credit, so they didn't before, and that is definitely under 55,000. So that should come back. Mach-E we mentioned before definitely should be totally fine. Rivian's American, but I'm pretty sure it's too
Right around the
expensive.
price.
If maybe the base model.
Yeah.
We mentioned Taycan already. No. Here's where I get kind of upset.
Also, Taycan is Porsche's German.
It's German as well. That's not, it doesn't fit at all in that bill. Cars, like, I think my two favorite and the EVs I think that are like being very hyped up and changing a lot right now is like the EV6 and the Ioniq 5, both assembled in South Korea. So these will not be part of the tax incentives. Whereas if you're buying one right now, it's in that 200 unit, so you would be getting it.
So they would lose that
or
discount.
The potential. Yeah, they would lose that. And then also along with, like, if you really think of a lot of the places making EVs right now, Volvo, Toyota, Subaru, Nissan, all of them have announced them really recently or just come out with some. All of those would lose it. Japan, Belgium, everything like that. Like, not US made.
So for the companies who are making it, it potentially hurts their US sales a little bit specifically. And like you said, I've seen a lot of Ioniq 5s and EV6s out there. We are currently testing an Ioniq 5 and it's super sick. And as soon as you start driving it, you realize how many are also around you. You start seeing them everywhere. It's one of those things. And so maybe, I imagine a lot of people who are getting that car are also actively taking advantage of that tax discount. So yeah, that'll be curious to see how it affects specifically US sales of those models. Do I think it changes the landscape of like the Porsches and the Hummer EVs of the world, the $80,000 plus EVs that people are just going to get anyway? Not really.
No.
I think they're still going to have a market for them. But yeah, as far as adoption, that's what we're most concerned about. And it's also such a crazy market right now. Cars are just expensive right now.
Yeah, so which I kind of want to toss out here, and I just looked at it right now. The Model 3 rear-wheel drive is $46,900. The Model 3 long range right now starts at $57,900. So actually,
that's too expensive.
Wouldn't be it. And it's also like not enough over to where, do you think you could potentially, if this passes, see the Model 3 drop down to meet the requirement? And then, because at this point, right, that would incentivize more people to buy. And if you drop it down to,
oh, I see what you're saying.
What is it, 55? So if you drop it down to like 54.99, and then they would be getting.
So you're saying, because I imagine.
No, I guess, no, yeah.
I was imagining like Tesla sees the $55,000 price line show up, and I don't really see them lower their price actively very often. So I imagine they'd be like, oh, bummer, you have to pay full price. But that's interesting. You're saying they might lower it to $54,900 so that people see that and go, oh, I'm going to get a discount, and they'll buy that car more often. Possibly.
Yeah, like, is that $3,000 worth what a user would be seeing as at that point $10,000 because it's $3,000 cheaper plus $7,500?
I'm sure they'll do the math. I'll
be interested to see what that does.
Yeah.
Otherwise, we're going to see a lot of rear wheel Model 3s, I think.
Sure.
For sure.
Works for me. Yeah, no, I think at the end of the day, we do want to see more affordable EVs. And I remember when I asked Elon, remember at the interview, one of the questions I had was like, all right, you've gotten to maybe a $30,000, $35,000 lowest end baseline Model 3. Is there a world where there's a $25,000 EV in the future? Something interesting you said is one of the top 5 most frequent trade-ins for Model 3 is a Prius, right?
Yeah.
Which starts at 20-something $1,000, and they obviously have massive economies of scale. Do you think there's room? I mean, Tesla has Model 3, Model S, and Roadster and up. Is there room for possibly an even less expensive quality electric car experience?
Yeah, absolutely. I think in order for us to get to, like, let's say ultimately getting to like a $25,000 car, that's something we could do, but it's probably, if we really work really hard, I think maybe we could do that in 3 years. And like every year since that interview, there's been some article written about how Tesla's eventually going to make like a $25,000 Model 2 or something like that.
Yeah.
And it just seems like that gets further and further from possibility as the market gets more and more difficult to make cars in. Like, supply chain's crazy. The car market is crazy. The lowest end Model 3 you can get is well over 40 grand. It's like, I don't see a quality $25,000 EV happening anytime soon. So the fact that we are still trying to get there and incentivizing it, and hopefully something like this can pass and be good, that'd be nice. But yeah, EVs, they're expensive. It's a fact.
They are very expensive.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for watching this clip. Now that you've gotten to the end, make sure to set a reminder in your clock app to subscribe to the Waveform Clips channel. So just go ahead and open that up, set an alarm, whatever time you want, really, whenever you think you'll be around your phone, and then just tell it to subscribe. Tell yourself to subscribe.
To subscribe. And anything else? Comment?
If you want to set a separate alarm for 1 minute later, set a separate alarm for 6:01. Let's say you did 6 o'clock, and make that the alarm to leave a comment, so that you remember to also leave a comment. Then you're set.
Yeah.
2 alarms, baby.
2 alarms. That's how I live my entire life, pretty much. Yeah.